Talk to me, Jesse. This ain't working. I told you, we'll lengthen your injector pulse. She'll run 9s, maybe mates. And this front wheel drive street tire, 2000 Maxima. Anyway, I'm here with this Silverado. We're on our 3rd set of head gaskets. That's what this video is about. Should I or shouldn't I use Chinese head gaskets? Without a doubt, no. If it's the end of the world and you walking around need head gaskets and they're laying on the ground, it's the only head gaskets left and they're Chinese. Amazon, eBay, Temu, Wowoo, use them. Cheap head gaskets for 30 bucks. LS9 head gaskets, which you may not need, or 115, or AC Delco, or 80. The nice Velcro at O'Reilly with the blue coating are 80 a piece. We're still talking under 200 bucks. You can get Cometic for 200 bucks. It's a ridiculous job, and to be honest, I don't know if I would rather do head gaskets or rear main seal on these things. Both of them would be stupid to cheap out on for what they cost. Rear main seal Velcro at O'Reilly's is 70 bucks. Yeah, you can get a Amazon one for 30. You can get AC Delco and replace it, which is what they always did. They just put a new seal in the plate. The newer seals are thinner. They're not as thick. You got to make sure they're seated properly and they're installed properly. They're aligned properly. Most of the time, it's us that do it wrong. But I'm here to tell you, should you or should you not use Chinese head gaskets? I'm saying no. We're on our 3rd set. We learned the lesson the hard way. Not really because we wanted to cheap out, more because we had a bunch of them and we didn't want to wait 2 or 3 days because we're always in a hurry for no reason. Or, second, should you use Chinese head studs? Now, in the past 2 months, I've used 2 sets. I used them on the LS2, but I decided to take them back out because torquing them, when you got around 55 pounds, they started feeling a little spongy. And I used them on this one, the same thing. In the 3rd set, which would have been the 2nd head gaskets on this thing, they felt pretty good, but I'm telling you, we just put ARP on here and we torqued. The first is 25, 50, then 80. And 80, I mean, you couldn't even, you could have went further. You don't need to, but the Chinese ones, even though they look just as beefy, I mean, looking at them, the nuts are smaller, but the actual bolt, but looks can be deceiving. And should you use Chinese head studs? I think if you can get them to torque properly, they don't give you no torque specs, by the way. I don't think you can do ARP. You could probably do 25, 40, maybe 65 or 70. I know people are going to say, "Oh, torquing things to 100," but I just don't know. I wouldn't. But the big difference between Chinese head studs and ARP is, $300. So that does weigh on your mind. And if I was going to make a decision whether or not I can't afford, I'm on a budget. I can't afford ARP. I want my engine done right now. I've had to buy an intake. I've had to buy an alternator. I can't afford ARP. I just can't right now, and I want my truck going. And it ain't something you could put on cheap and then go back and do it. You could, but you really couldn't. You'd have to redo it. So I'm back. I have a central vacuum. It's in my shop. Whew. My daughter's vacuuming and it's kind of loud. Anyway, back to Chinese head studs. Would I use them? If I was putting back stock, maybe just a cam change, cam and lifters. Maybe, but I think I would save my money, guys. I just don't. that's a lot of work to have to go back and redo. I mean, it's a weekend. You spent 60 on those. You could always send them back and get ARP, but that's a lot of work, brother. Plus, you're going to destroy your head gaskets. You can reuse them, but again, it's a lot of work to even do that. So I think if I was on a budget, I would just buy a new AC Delco. They're going to hold. I mean, they're going to hold. You start getting over 1,000 horsepower, then you shouldn't even be thinking about cheap stuff at that point. Anyway, 700, you need to start. You know, you could build a budget. I watch videos of guys who building. I mean, big guys taking junkyard motors, and I'm not nowhere near as knowledgeable as that they are. Nowhere. I learn something new every day messing with these things. But I think they put these junkyard motors on the dyno. They don't even go inside of them. They set for the cam and maybe lifters. I mean, they might not even do that, and they're making, close to 500 horsepower with a intake, or throw a turbo on it, making 650. But it don't really, it's on the dyno, and they try to make it the best they can with a radiator and which is electric water pump, and which is going to give you a few extra horses, and they really know what they're doing to peak all that out. And we don't know. If you was to do that, you say, man, that guy just went and got a 5.3 at a junkyard for $500. Put a $300 cam in it and lifters, and he's making 500 horsepower. But what's it doing a month from now? What's it doing 6 months from now? Would be my question. I think even the junkyard motor, I'd want to be looking, when I drain the oil, when I opened it up, seeing the first cam bearing when you pull the cover, doing a new oil pump. So it can get expensive. You look on there and they say, $300 cam or $600 cam kit, your, headers, and, you're 450 horsepower, and thinking, dang, that's cheap, but it's more than that. It's more. So the moral of this video is, do I use Chinese gaskets? No. Not under any circumstances. That's my opinion. Some people are going to say, I've used them, my 1,500 horsepower on $30. I don't care. I wouldn't. I mean, we lined up the other day 10 different sets of, we had an AC Delco set, which was the LS1, Brian Tooley LS9 we just got, and we probably had 8 or 9 different Chinese sets. I ordered a set of gaskets on Amazon, a complete engine gasket set down to the O-rings for the injectors for $23 shipped to my door. Head gaskets, both valley pan type gaskets, every water pump type gasket, valve cover gasket, front and rear main seal, not the plate, just the seal. Every freaking gasket, $23. The head gaskets, they look good. They're $5 head gaskets, basically. No. I just ordered them because the valley pan gasket, to me, I've never had one of those leak. Throttle body O-ring, water pump gaskets that come in those cheap kits, they're okay. They're good. I'm not going to go to O'Reilly's and spend $50 on a valley pan gasket. That's just nuts. I'll reuse the old one. I mean, worst comes to worst, I pull the intake. 30 minutes later, I got a new one on. But there's things you can save money and there's things you can't. Definitely not head gasket, not rear main seal. Don't do it. Studs, you could try, but I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it. I'd save my money or go back AC Delco. I've reused AC Delco. We did it. We had a 03 Yukon that had a lifter tick on the driver's side, and it was showing a misfire. I think it was number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think. And we pulled the head off, and it was at night. It was my son's car. He needed it the next day. And all I had was a Chinese gasket, but it's completely stock Yukon. We put lifters in it. It looked clean inside, and everything back stock, and we did use a Chinese head gasket, and he hasn't had any problems. But the other day he told me he was losing coolant, so he said he was before, so I'm wondering. But he's pulling that engine anyway and going to build another 5.3. So it's if it's losing a little bit of coolant out the exhaust, it ain't smoking. We don't know. It's just no big deal because it's not running bad and it's running good and it's not even smoking. But it's losing coolant and I don't see where it's coming from. Anyway, that's my 1 to 2 cents. And please, if you've had different experiences or did different things, we've copper coated them. We copper coated the last set on here, and it looks like it's stuck. And I didn't find really any oil. I found a little bit of oil, water in the oil. It was crazy. Like under the head gaskets was real milky. I mean, under the valve covers was real milky. Under the front cover was milky. But that could have been condensation. But it was smoking white smoke. The first time that we had bad head gaskets, like, it could have been user, installer error, not torquing things correctly. And golly, I pulled the pan bolt to drain the oil and half a gallon of water came out. It was like, immediately you knew this wasn't that way. But it was losing coolant, so it must have been coming out the exhaust and burning it up and not getting back in the oil. Anyway, we decided to go ahead and go full blast ARP, head studs, LS9 gaskets. And, I took my time on this one. I didn't get in a hurry because this is the third time. This is a 6.2 out of a newer Escalade, I believe. And 243 heads. They've been shaved 30 thousandths. Stock bottom end, stock pistons. And we're going to see. So I'll update, if you have anything that you've done differently that's like, look, I use Chinese head gaskets, never had one issue, I do this, then please let us know. And subscribe. I like making these videos to help people. But my thing is no Chinese head gasket, no Chinese rear main seal. I wouldn't do front main seal either, but I mean, it's something that's not that bad. Pull the fans and pull a few things off, you can get to that. No to Chinese head gaskets. Thanks. See y'all later.